Hello and welcome. In this video we're going to learn how to send a template email message with dynamic data using a popular template engine called Pug, which allows us to write cleaner templates with less repetition. Pug uses indentation and minimal markup to create templates that are easier to read than traditional HTML. Pug also allows us to print variables, use conditionals, repetition structures, and the possibility of reusing code, keeping things nice and organized. I already have a Node.js project open here in VS Code where I'm using the Node Mailer module to send emails. If you're not familiar with using Node Mailer, there's a video here on the channel explaining how to use Node Mailer with several examples, including how to use your personal Gmail account with Node Mailer. I'll leave the video link on the description below. So here in VS Code, I create a file called index.js, which will be our main file. And inside this file, I'm importing the Node Mailer module here on the top. And here on step number 1, we need to create something called transporter, calling the Node Mailer create transport function. And inside, I'm setting the service property to Gmail so we can use our personal Gmail account. And also I'm setting the auth property with the user, which is our Gmail personal address, and the password. This password is not the password of our personal Gmail account. This is a password generated to use in a third-party application. On the video link on the description below, I'll show you how to generate this password. And both this information is safely stored in a .env file here. And on step number 2, I'm creating an object called mail options where I'm setting the from property, which is the email address of the sender, and the to property, which is the email address of the recipient. This also can be an array of emails. Then the subject of the email, and last here the text option with just a simple text message without HTML and CSS. And on step number 3, I'm sending the email by calling the transporter object I created up here and calling the send mail function, which receives 2 parameters. The first parameter is the mail options object I created on step number 2, and the second parameter is a callback function which returns an error object. And inside the callback function, I'm checking if there is an error. If so, I'm printing the error on the console. Otherwise, I'm printing a success message. So let's run the index.js file to see the result. So I'll open the terminal here on the top and run node and the name of the file, which is index. Hit enter. And great, we got message sent successfully. Now let me open my Gmail account. And here's the message, let's open, and perfect. As you can see, we got just a simple text message with no styles. So back on the code, let's start creating our email template files using Pug, and later on the video, we'll make the content more dynamic. So here on the terminal, let me clear, and let's install the Pug module by typing npm install Pug. Hit enter, and perfect, module installed. Let me close the terminal here and let's create our template files in a separate directory because we might need multiple template files. So it's a good practice to store these files in a specific folder. So here on the root, I'll create a new folder called views, but you can give the name you prefer. And inside this folder, I'll create our first template, so new file, and we'll call this welcome message.pug. Okay, so the Pug syntax doesn't use open and close HTML tags. Instead, it uses indentation to work out which tags are nested inside each other. So let me paste a basic Pug template here so we can understand better and work from there. Okay, as you can see, we have the HTML tag here on the top, and nested inside this tag, we have the head tag with the meta and title information inside. And also inside the HTML tag, we have the body tag. So the syntax is cleaner than the standard HTML, but for some users, it might get confused at first glance, but we can get used to it. So inside the body tag, I'll add some spaces here by pressing the tab key, and let's create a basic template. So I'll add an h1 tag here, and we can add the content in front of it. So I'll add welcome user. And let's also add a paragraph and the content in front saying you are registered to the application. Okay, just a simple template so we can test. Now we need to send this template instead of sending just a simple text message. So on the index file, we need to pass the template on the mail options object. But first, let's import the pug module below the node mailer import. So const pug equals to require pug. Now inside the mail options object, instead of setting the text property here, we need to set the HTML property. And inside we need to tell pug to render the content from the welcome message template we created and kind of convert to a normal HTML syntax. So let's call the pug module here dot, and we're gonna use the render file function. And as a parameter, we need to set the path of our template files, which is the views folder with the welcome message file inside. So I'll add here underscore dir name, which returns the path where the index file is, which is the same path where the views folder is. And then we're going to concatenate with slash views slash welcome message dot pug. Great, that's all. Let's test these changes by opening the terminal. Let me clear here first and run node index. Okay, message sent successfully, back on Gmail. So here we have the old message with just a simple text. Let's remove this one. And here's the new message. Let's open. And perfect. Here we have the welcome message template file with the H1 saying welcome user and the paragraph saying you are registered to the application. Great. So we are sending our first template using pug. And we can also add some styles to this template. So here inside the head tag, below the title, and in the same column, we can add a style tag. And pug allows us to use tag interpolation by adding a dot here on the end. And everything inside the style tag is assumed to be a plain HTML or CSS. So now we can write normal CSS syntax. Let me add some spaces here by pressing the tab key. And let's add some styles for the H1 tag. So H1. And let's change the color of the text to green, for example. Okay, let's also add some styles for the paragraph and change the color property as well to a darker gray like this. Okay, and let's change the font size property to 20 pixels. Great, let's test these changes by opening the terminal and run node index. Okay, message sent, back on Gmail. So here we have the old message with no styles. Let's remove this one and open the new message. And perfect. As you can see, the H1 is green and the paragraph with a darker gray color and the font size as 20 pixels. So all good with the styles. Now we could write some HTML code directly inside the HTML property of the mail options object, or we could just point to an external HTML file. But the benefit of using a template engine like Pug is the possibility of inserting dynamic content inside the template. So for example, here on the welcome message file, inside the H1, instead of sending the user text here, we could add a variable and tell Pug to replace this variable to some other content, making the template more dynamic. And to insert a variable, we can add a hash sign followed by curly braces. And inside the braces, we can put the variable name. So let's add here user name in camel case, but you can add all with lowercase if you prefer. Now back on the index file, we need to pass on the render file function the content of the variables we set on the template. So after the path parameter, we can add a second parameter here, which is an object with the variables we set on the parameter. So in our case, the username variable. And I'll put here John Doe, for example. Great, let's test these changes. So here on the terminal, let's run node index. Okay, message sent, back on Gmail. So here we have the old message without the username variable. Let's remove it. And let's open the new message. And perfect. As you can see in the H1, it's showing John Doe, which is the username we sent to the template, replacing the username variable. Great, we saw how easy it is to set variables in a Pug template. Now, here on the welcome message template, we set the styles directly in the template file. But what if we have multiple templates and we need to set the styles manually in each template? It will be much better if we set the styles in a separate file and we can reuse this styles file inside the template files. So let's create this new file inside the views folder. So new file. And since we're going to reuse this file in other Pug templates, I personally like to prefix with an underscore. So then I know that this file is meant to only be included in another template. And I'll put the name as styles.pug. Okay, so now inside the styles file, let's select the styles from inside the welcome message template, including the style tag here. Cut and paste inside the styles file. Okay, now we need to include the styles file inside the welcome message file. So here inside the head tag, to include another file inside the template, we can add the include function keyword, followed by the name of the file we want to include. In our case, the underscore styles. We don't need to add the extension here because it's already expected to be a Pug file. And here on the styles file, let me just change something to make sure everything is working. So I'll remove the font size property of the paragraph here. Okay, so let's test these changes. Let me open the terminal and run again node index. Okay, message sent, back on Gmail. So here we have the old message, as you can see, with the paragraph a little bigger with 20 pixels. Let's remove this message and open the new one. And great, we got the new style message, and here's the paragraph with the default font size. Great. Now, one cool feature from Pug is that it supports template inheritance. So let's say we have a base template, and inside this base template, we want to add another template. So we can make all email templates with the same header and footer, for example, just changing the message between these sections. So let's create a base template inside the views folder. So new file, and we'll name this base message.pug. Now inside the base message file, let's copy the entire code from the welcome message file except what's inside the body tag. Okay, let me just format here a little, and let's paste inside the base message file. Okay, so let's say that our base template should have a div here on the top, which will be the header. But instead of adding a div tag, we can include the name of the class directly, and Pug will understand that this is a div. So let's add the .header div here, and inside this div, let's add a pipe sign, which is just a way to add a plain text inside a template. And let's add company logo, for example. So we're defining that all templates should have a company logo on the top, and also on the bottom let's add .footer, which is the div, and inside also a pipe sign with a greeting message saying regards, and let's add a BR tag to insert another line, and the pipe sign again, and the content saying company name. Great. So between the header and the footer, we want to include another template file, which we call a child template. And to include a child template, we need to enter the block keyword, followed by the content word. So now we need to include the welcome message template inside here, replacing the block content. So on the welcome message file, we need to add the base message file as a parent. So here on the top, we can add the extends keyword and the name of the file that the template will inherit. In our case, the base message. Okay, now we need to inform what is the content of the message by adding the block content keyword above the actual content, like this. And we need to add some spaces here to tell Pug that the h1 and the paragraph belongs inside the block content keyword. Okay, so now we have the base message with the header and the footer, and between we should get the welcome message template content. Let's test these changes by opening the terminal and type node index. Okay, message sent, back on Gmail. So here we have the old message without inheriting the base message template. Let's delete this one and open the new received message. And as you can see, we have the company logo here on the top as a header, the welcome message template here with the h1 and the paragraph, and the footer here on the bottom with the content saying regards, company name. So the template inheritance is working perfectly. And of course we can add some styles to the header and the footer classes here. So on the styles file, let's add a style for the header class. And let's change the color of the font to a darker gray color we use on the paragraph. And also the font size property to 20 pixels. And let's add styles for the footer class as well. So I'll add a light gray color here, like this. Okay, and actually let's add this same color to the header as well. Okay, let's test these changes. So on the terminal, node index. Okay, message sent, back on Gmail. So here we have the old message with no styles on the footer and on the header as well. Let's remove this message and open the new received message, and perfect. As you can see, the header now with a light gray color and with font size as 20 pixels. And the footer with the light gray color as well, so everything is working perfectly. Now here on the index.js file, we could add all this code in a separate function so we can reuse this function in other parts inside our project. So below here, I'll create a new function called send email, and for the parameters we can set the to property, which is the email address of the recipient, and also the subject of the message, the template we want to use, and the dynamic data inside the template, which is the parameter we set here. Okay, now inside this function, let me select the entire code from steps 2 and 3. Okay, cut from here and paste inside this send email function. Okay, now let me just remove the comments here. Alright, now we need to handle the parameters here. So let's replace the to property with the to parameter we have. And since the property name is the same as the value name, we can leave just the to here. And same for the subject. Okay, now for the template here, we need to replace the welcome message here with the template parameter. So let me format here a little. And between the views folder and the Pug extension, we'll add the template parameter. Okay, let me add the dot here. Alright, so now we're setting the render file path to the views folder, followed by the template from the parameter, followed by the Pug extension. Now we can replace the object here with the data parameter. So data. Okay, and the rest looks good. Now let's call this send email function here on the bottom. So send email, and for the to parameter, I'll add one of my personal emails here. And for the subject, I'll put dynamic email template with Pug. And for the template, we could use the welcome message template we already have, but let's create a new template so we can test. So inside the views folder, I'll create a new file, call another message.pug. Now inside this file, we need to extend from the base message template. And for the block content, let's add some spaces here using the tab key, and let's add a paragraph with a content saying your access code is, and let's insert a variable here, so hash curly braces, and inside the access code variable. Now back on the index file, let's add the new template file here. So another message, and for the data, let's add an object with the access code inside equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Great, let's test. So on the terminal, node index. Okay, message sent, back on Gmail. So here we have the old message showing the welcome message template. Let's remove it and open the new received message. And perfect, here's the subject we entered and the company logo on the header, the content from the another message template file with the access code variable, and the footer here on the bottom. So everything is working perfectly. And now we can reuse this function inside our project, let's say inside an express route or somewhere else inside the project. Great, so in this video we learned how to send email templates using the Pug template engine with dynamic data. And we learned a little about the Pug syntax, how it works with indentation, we learned how to include external files, how to use interpolation, and how to use a template inheritance. If you want to learn how to make dynamic email templates using a different template engine, we have a video here on the channel using the handlebars template engine and the EJS template engine as well. I'll leave the video links on the description below and also the GitHub repo link for this example as well. Hope this video was useful to you, and if it was, please click on the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching and hope to see you on the next video.